All right, so today, welcome back. Zillion years later. Unfortunately, a lot of things I think have been trying to prevent me from moving forward with doing this channel. And as I started to recognize that, I started to do, things more so on TikTok where I felt like I could start exercising the things that I've been led to talk about. But now I'm ready, and I just figured out an easier way to film these videos. So welcome to Girl Get Your Life. This episode is called Healing is Hard, Do It Anyway. The reason why I wanted to talk about this is because this topic is actually how I was led to do something like this. Yes, I've done Diva Diaries, and I did my Bid Chat show years ago. Those were more so crazy, I'd like to think hilarious outtakes to life lessons and things that I experience every day, because my life can be a fucking movie, like real talk. But Girl Get Your Life channel was inspired through me actually going through a process of healing myself. And after being done with that process and my therapist breaking up with me, I love her, but she broke my heart, okay? Encouraging me to share the things that I've learned. Also, throughout my 41 years of life, I've also given advice to so many people and been told by people of all different backgrounds and walks of life, that that I should charge for my information. I think for a long time I was in a space of feeling like I didn't have enough resources, I didn't have the right equipment, I didn't, I just didn't, couldn't, which also I think was another step in my healing process, right? Was understanding that outside of me knowing I'm worthy for love, real love, and deserving, it was also that I have a voice that's worth being heard, and a voice that actually has helped people on smaller scales. So here we are. Welcome to my bedroom. Only a few know where the Bat Cave is, but you are inside the Bat Cave, okay? Consider yourself lucky. I just felt like I have designed my room to be my sanctuary. I've designed my entire home to be my sanctuary. And I don't allow many people in my space. This wasn't some all access thing. I just felt that my bedroom was the perfect place of peace to talk about things like this, because it just is like a symbol of the peace that I found within myself since I started the process of healing. Now, the reason why I want to talk about healing is because I get really sick of seeing so many people online talk about, sorry, my windows are thin, you might hear my neighbors, but I get so tired of hearing people online talk about healing as if it's just this, this stop on the bus line to greatness. You know what I mean? I get really tired of hearing people say, well, that's because you need to do the healing. That's because you just need to heal. I feel like there's so much information out that may or may not come from credited sources, but I don't really see people give any information based off of their personal experience and their actual process. We've leaned so far away from facts being functional and necessary that I think that a lot of times, although some people I think do have great advice, they throw out these abstract terms and ideologies that I don't feel they actually have experience. And when somebody is looking for answers, they need answers, not just concepts, and I think that's what's wrong with our country in general at this point. So the reason why I wanted to focus on healing is because I think we need to really talk about what that looks like. The whole purpose of Girl Get Your Life is to work on ourselves, is to identify ourselves, is to be accountable for things that we've allowed in our lives, things we are fixing, to champion ourselves. And yes, it mainly is going to be from a female perspective, but like on my TikTok, I have a lot of male followers that comment too and add their 2 cents and share and find meaning in what we're talking about, which I really enjoy as well. And But as a woman, I'm going to speak mainly as a woman. I will lend other resources that I have from other people I know, of course, protecting their privacy and names, etc. But I'm going to speak from a woman's perspective because that's who the hell I am. Okay. So I think that when I decided to go to therapy, I don't think I did it from a place of I need to heal. And I was 30, I want to say I was like 34, maybe. Yeah, I think I was around 33, 34. Although I've always felt in touch with myself, I don't feel like I fully have known myself until now, until I hit 40, if that makes any sense. It's one thing to be in touch with what makes you feel good, what, you know, what vibe and energy you're used to being at, where your mind is usually at. And there's another thing to be very clear about who you are, what you accept, what you like, what you're looking for, what doesn't work with you, what type of energies you don't like to be around, your work environments. Like, that's who I am now. Like, I know who I am to the point where I'm looking for someone who knows themselves as well and wants to know me, you know, and find a commonality to coincide and like live in a great interpersonal relationship. All that to say that back then, I didn't know myself, but I knew something was wrong. And I think that's where it starts. Like, I didn't know myself fully, but I knew something was wrong. I knew the pressure I was feeling was unrelenting. I knew the anxiety that I felt was much higher than usual. I've had bouts or moments of anxiety, but it was becoming like a never ending hum in the background of my life. And sometimes the hum would become so loud that all I could do is go to sleep, you know, or I'd have moments of feeling so enormously overwhelmed that all I wanted to do was disappear. That was the red flag for me. I've never had any thoughts or, you know, inclination to physically harm myself or unalive myself. But I knew that me wanting to disappear was like 4 steps from that. And I knew that that was not my normal MO. I am a very resilient person. I am someone who has always cried for a day, got up and kept moving. I've been somebody who has always been known as the strong one, the strong friend, the person that everybody relies on. So for me to feel like I wanted to disappear was really scary. I'm going to check this video just to make sure it's still recording because I don't want any issues. So. Okay, sorry guys. Sorry guys, first time using my phone for this, and I didn't want to just be talking and it not be recorded because it's happened many times. The enemy will try to block you. Okay, so sorry, back to what I was saying. I've always been known as the strong friend. So when I knew that I wanted to disappear, literally that's the only way I could describe it. I just knew I wanted to not be here. That was my call. Like, okay, something's wrong. And clearly, however you've been managing your life and managing your emotions up until this point is not working. So that was the first step of healing. And what I see so often, listening to people, watching people, is people aligning healing with getting over it. People aligning healing with, you know, leaving one and getting up under another. People aligning healing with, well, just forget about it. Find a way to cope, which aggravates me beyond, is that concept of finding a way to cope. What I've seen people say about healing is learning more defenses. You know what I'm saying? People take this term and this concept of healing and make it everything but healing. What I've experienced through my process is not avoiding, is not getting over it, is not finding someone else to give you the things that you feel you lost to this last situation. Healing is walking straight up to it, acknowledging that it's wrong, and walking all the way through that shit. And sometimes dragging your ass through that shit behind you, like real talk. Um, so the process of me was first acknowledging this isn't right. I've been trying to maintain and manage this on my own for my entire life. And up until this point, after exiting a emotionally abusive relationship, I've been able to get over things and move on. But now I have all these other symptoms of me wanting to disappear, me feeling depressed, me sleeping and not being able to get out of bed, anxiety. All of these things started to happen, and I knew I was not capable and had not lived enough life to be able to deal with that on my own. So, first step is acknowledging that something's wrong. And you know what? It's okay. It's okay that shit is wrong. It's okay that you feel like something's off. You're a human being. Specifically as a Black woman, I feel like we are, I think men in general kind of know a little more so than what Black women feel when it comes to being um, not allowed space to not be okay. You know, like when I hear men talk about how some of their women weaponize their vulnerable moments, and how I hear men tell me about how they can't express the emotion behind why they're angry because they're not allowed to. It will be seen as weak. That's how I feel as a Black woman. Um, Typically, we are not allowed the same space, the same pillowcases to lay our burdens down as women of other races, because we are the strong ones. We are the ones that help everybody. We are the ones that people come to for mentorship. We are the ones that, niggas come to when they need a place to stay, to sleep on our damn couches, like let's keep it a buck. We are the ones that do that. So typically we are not allowed the same space and the pillowcases to lay our burdens down. So first step is acknowledging there's something wrong, and that's okay. That doesn't make you any less all of the things, all of the powerful things. So after that, I decided that I need to find resources outside of myself, because at least at that time in my life, I understood that running from my issues isn't going to help me. And I've always had a very clear concept of me coping with things versus me dealing with things. And I understood that I didn't know any more skills or ideals around dealing, right? So all I had at that point was some idea of dealing with my shit, but a lot more coping, because now I have all these symptoms in my life that I don't understand, okay? So at that point, I decided, you know what? I think it's time for me to go to therapy. Did I have doubts? Absolutely. I remember feeling like, as a Black person, we don't do therapy. Talk about our problems. We don't go to a person and talk about our problems. This is a concept and a resource that is just newly available to us as a whole, as a population. But in the Black community, you don't do that. You pray, and then you go to church, you tithe, and you go home, and you just wait for it to get better. And trust and believe, I'm not saying anything against the prayer, because I am a Christian, hands down. I believe in God. I don't really mess with the church like that for other reasons. That's a whole other video. But my prayer life, me talking to God, me reading the Bible, learning about characters of the Bible, that's something I do. And I'm the type of believer that believes that God wouldn't have invented therapy. God wouldn't have put somebody in your space, in your path with these answers, if it wasn't meant for you to access them. I think Christians like to cut off a lot of resources as not godly, without contemplating that maybe God gave that person that information, that compassion, that empathy, that resource for you to heal. And because of that, a lot of people in our community are still, going in circles. And I do know this to be true in other, communities of races, where people are put down for actually trying to figure themselves out, for trying to understand why they have so much pain, as if there's something wrong with having questions, And it's really hard to see. I'm very fortunate that not only am I in a time, that we all are in a time where we do have access to this. Whether you are in California like me, everybody can get therapy in California. If you're on Obamacare or any health plan, you can have access to a therapist. Or if you're doing BetterHelp, something. If you're just watching podcasts of therapists, which is something I dived into heavily through my process, we all have access to something that can get us starting. So I decided to find a therapist. I waited 2.5 months for a specific Black female therapist. Why? I didn't want to have to explain my Blackness through my trauma. Oftentimes, when I've had to speak about my experiences to white people, to, you know, my other minorities, I have to explain my Blackness in explaining my trauma, because most of the time there can be somewhat of an empathy to it, but never a full understanding. Therefore, you will get things and questions that sometimes are, but may just appear as gaslighting. Are you sure that really happened? Are you sure maybe they weren't just? Are you sure that's how they meant it? You don't want to have to explain the microaggressions that you deal with every day on your dollar to somebody who's supposed to be helping you with your own trauma. That's just my opinion, okay? Now, I was out for 3 other women of different ethnicities. I spoke to one woman who was Armenian. I didn't really click with her. I did have another woman who was Indian, who I kind of vibed with. She was like my second go-to. But I knew I needed somebody that I can walk into the room with and speak freely. Okay. Finally found my lady. What I told myself when I decided to go into therapy is that if I'm going to fucking do this, I'm going to fucking do this. I'm not going to sit here and withhold information. I'm not going to hide things. You know, I will give myself the time and space to open up as time goes. But when I'm asked a question, I'm going to answer it. I'm going to breathe, check in, and I'm going to be fully transparent. Anybody who knows me in real life knows that that's pretty much how I operate anyway. Like, I've been told I'm a very blunt person. Like, I'm very direct. So I told myself, if I'm going to go and take an hour of my day every week, and I think I started off at 2 times a week when I started, if I'm going to do this, then I need to do this. And this is the other thing I see when people talk about going to therapy, and it irks me. I hear people go to therapy and withhold information. I hear people go to therapy and get medication in 2 days and be like, "Oh yeah, I went to my therapist." No, bitch, that don't count. You went to a drug pusher. You went to somebody to give you meds. You didn't go to a therapist to discuss, to work on, to address, to walk through the things that are eating you up inside. It doesn't count. Sorry, not sorry. So hiding things from your therapist that you know, because we know that if we give certain information, it's going to either paint us in a certain light to the person we're speaking to. Healing can't be done if you're not really ready to be completely forthright and just honest about who you are, why you chose what you chose, what you were thinking in the moment, what you wanted, you know, what you thought this was going to get you. You cannot, it's not going to work if you're not ready to be honest. It's just not. It's not going to work. So, second step of that is being ready to be transparent and honest, like 10 toes down, no excuses, no exceptions. And honestly, I didn't walk in there being super like open. It took me, you know, a few sessions. I remember maybe around session 3, I started giving a little more, but eventually it got to the point to where she would ask me something. And I was so free and comfortable with her that I would be like, "Girl, da, 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 da." Like, I would tell her some stuff and her face would go, like, because I'm just speaking so openly and freely. But I feel like you have to get to that level of transparency if you're really trying to get somewhere. It's so necessary. You know what I mean? And I do understand that this is an outside person from your life, and this is someone you don't necessarily know. But you hired them for a purpose. You hired them for a service. So why waste your time and their time? Why waste your money and the hours of your life that you could be spending feeling better if you're not going to utilize this person for what the hell you just hired them to do, right? So that was the second step, was transparency. I think the thing that I wasn't ready for was the length of time that it took. The length of time that it took and the patience I needed to have with the process. And what's crazy is my therapist applauded me for being someone so proactive in my own healing, because she's had people and clients that she's had for years that won't even just do the work, in her words, just do the work. And she was just like, "You're literally like every day showing up, trying to figure this out, trying to face it. And she's so proud of the progress. But in my mind, I'm like, girl, this shit is taking forever. When are we there? Are we there yet? Like, she trying to be at Disneyland on the teacups. I'm still at the Tower of Terror, ma'am. Like, when are we getting to the fun part? I'm thinking this is taking forever. And she's like, girl, you are doing great. So after sharing with other people that I have been going to therapy and watching other people's progress and like watching podcasts and things, I feel like people waste their own time by not being honest, but also don't give ourselves enough patience and grace to walk through the process. Depending on what you've been through, there is no timeline. There is no set timeline. And I really walked in there thinking like, boom, bet, I'm gonna sign up. I'll be good by spring. Yo, she gonna be out in these streets again. Like, literally was thinking my whole life was gonna be great, right? No, that's not how it works. There is no timeline. There is no timeline. Time is fluid in healing. So being open to that and having the patience with myself, because I'd have one week where I felt like I had a breakthrough, right? And I was like, okay, I'm starting to figure it out. Okay, I just need to do this. And then the following week, something would happen and I would come back in broken in tears about a whole nother like shoot off of the same issue, and feeling like I had put myself back 3 or 4 steps. You know what I'm saying? And that's a part of the process. Like now looking back, and still healing, because healing is never just a post on this path of life. Healing is continuous. It's continuous work and effort. So yeah, patience with yourself, understanding that shit is not, there is no blueprint. It really is about how much you can handle taking in, how much you're going to deal with in an authentic and genuine way. And then there was just moments where I would just need breathing room. You know what I mean? Like have a really intense session, feel like things were like going to be changing, and then have a setback and feel defeated and feel like this is never going to work. I'm never going to get this right. Like I'm never going to be done feeling horrible about myself after this relationship, or I'm never going to be good enough to work in the industries that I want to work in, or be seen, as the performer and artist that I want to be, and literally would need to shut it down, which was a part of the coping, so there was coping used through the process of healing, but my MO was never to cope in order to call it healing. Those are two different things. And I don't want to give any credit to coping and calling it healing. Like I want to push us to push ourselves to the true authentic places of peace, not the false Instagram. Everything's great now. I'm taking selfies. No, bitch, you're not. You're crying when you go home and you can't sleep at night. Like, let's call a thing a thing. You know what I mean? I don't want to keep perpetuating that if I have anything to do with it or if I'm touching it, right? So the patience was necessary. I spoke about this on one of my TikTok videos. Now, the patience that was necessary was because I had to confront a lot of things from my childhood. I had to confront relationships that I've allowed to happen in my life. I had to confront all the microaggressions that I have never, ever, ever, ever defended myself against, which felt like macroaggressions when I had to talk about it. I had to confront being in a Me Too situation where I could have been greatly harmed outside of just being touched inappropriately and propositioned. I had to address the relationship with my mother. I had to address things that people don't want to deal with because it makes people uncomfortable. The truth makes people uncomfortable. And when the truth pertains to you and how you're living and what you're doing, that's the last thing that anybody really wants to look at is themselves. So it forced me to really deal with things head on, not find a way to not deal with them. And if, I don't know what exactly you guys would like to talk about, but if anybody ever wants to know any of those topics and you want me to touch on those, hit the comments are there for your pleasure. So I'm so open to hear what you guys want to hear. But it was a process of me confronting it, crying about it, crying myself to sleep about it, waking up, thinking about it again. Sometimes shaming myself for decisions I've made, and forgiving myself, crying about it again. It was just a process of confronting and breaking down, confronting and breaking down, confronting and breaking down. That's what healing is. It's not running from it. It's not using somebody else as a sounding board so you release it in that moment just to go do the dumb shit again. That's not what healing is. I'm just going to say, fuck everybody, fuck every man, because every man is horrible. And I'm just going to become a villain because I'm not going to get played. That's not healing. It's not healing. So confronting that and dealing with that over and over again, giving myself the space when I needed breaks, but being committed to my own healing so that I didn't let those breaks become rest stops. No, we're taking a break. We ain't sleeping here, right? Then the next step, which I talked about on my TikTok, was the self-accountability, which took longer for me than I thought it would. The self-accountability, God bless my therapist for delicately throwing that in my sphere so I could catch it, without throwing that shit back in her face. You know what I mean? Like, it was really eye-opening to see the things that I have allowed to happen. The relationships I allowed to happen when I knew they should have been cut off, or the relationships I allowed to happen when I was disrespected, used over and over again, and never said anything because I was someone who wanted to believe that I could love people past their pain. I could love people past their disrespect. I could overlook things because they don't know better, or I'm a good person, so I expected people to just genuinely want to be good. But that ain't our world, and that definitely ain't America, okay? So having to adjust to the fact that I didn't want to see things for what they were. I didn't want to see people for who they were. I wanted to romanticize my experiences to save myself from dealing with the pain of allowing myself to be disrespected, to be harmed, to be used, and treated like I'm not like the bad bitch that I am. Like, I allowed that. That was hard. That was hard to address. But I have learned through being accountable that me being self-aware is one of the things that men compliment me on the most. It is actually highly valuable in the dating market. In for me, I'm a 1099er. I am not a 9-to-5er. And I'm at the point now where I employ people. And I fully believe that my self-awareness is why people want to work with me, But just talking interpersonal relationships wise, and just making life easier for yourself. Oh my God. When you get past the hump of not wanting to hold yourself accountable, holding yourself accountable and checking yourself saves you so much more time, saves you so much more energy, rather than allowing yourself to create a narrative of bullshit about why your life is the way you are. You are literally exhausting your energy and your resources doing that. Like, when you get to the other side of like, let me check myself, why did I do that? When you get to using that in your everyday life, honey, wrinkles, where? She ain't got no time for them, because I'm not going to exhaust myself on things that are not going to help me get better and make myself better. And I'm not saying that this never happens. There's no absolutes, guys. So nobody's sitting up here acting like some fucking guru or somebody who knows it all. There's no absolutes. Everything is ebb and flow. There's nuance to everything. You know what I'm saying? So yes, there will be moments where you will go back into the closet of lack of accountability, but it is your job as somebody who's come through the threshold of accountability to pull yourself back across that threshold. Feel me? And if you need 2 days to do that, then do that. Like, I will give myself time. I'd be like, girl, you got 3 days, and then you're going to need to open your eyes, Sleeping Beauty. Okay. It's time. So self-accountability was number 4. And then the one part of my healing process that I did not do in therapy, which I do regret, which I wish I would have not been so afraid to do. And I wish I would have listened to my therapist. And this is why when I talk to younger women who tell me their stories, I encourage them to do this. That is to try again, to put yourself out there again while you have the resources of a therapist with you. When I was about 1.5 years in, I remember my therapist kept having me ask people in my life what they thought about me, or, why they want to be friends with me. She even had me start taking tabs when I would just talk to random people in the street, people at work, people at my gigs. and just write down the things that I would overhear people say about me. And she would always say, you don't believe this about yourself because you've gone through what you've gone through. But if this is your experience and the outside world is constantly telling you these things, there has to be some truth to it. So write this down and I want you to see how people see you. And that was the one thing I was willing to do. After she got me to do that, she was like, okay, so now that we've proven these things not to be true about yourself, don't you think it's worth you going out and trying again? Don't you think you should just, go on a few dates and let's try these new skills and tools that we decided on in these experiences? And I was like, I think I did one. And when I tell you I half-assed did one, okay? I didn't really apply myself. And I was terrified. I was terrified. I was in that protection phase. Like, oh, no. I understand why I did what I did. And I'm not going to do it again. But fuck that. I'm not going to put myself out there to see if I'll do it again. I just know I ain't going to do it again because she ain't going outside. That's where I was. You know what I mean? And I really do regret it because, of course, when I reached the end of my therapy with her and she was like, look, I got to cut you free. Like, I can't have my clients more than this amount of time. And at that time, it was like 2 years. She was like, I can't have my clients for this amount of time. I don't think you need me anymore. You don't need medication. We wrote down, everything for you. You don't need me. But in that moment, that's when I was like, no, bitch, I need you. I need you. I need you on the speed dial. I need to text you at any hour of the night, depending on what date I'm in and where we at in this date. And I need to be able to, like, I was so terrified. Like, wait, what? You want me to go outside and do what by myself and then do who? But yeah, like it was so scary. And I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to break up with, I did not want her to break up with me. I was like, yo, you can't be breaking up with me like this. Like we go together. Like, girl, we go together. You are my boo. You are my therapy boo. And I cannot do this life, freshly reborn. You know what I'm saying? Like literally it's like, because when you come out of knowing and unknowing, it's still super raw. It's still super fresh. It's like you're literally just seeing the world again for the first time. I didn't want to do that. Oh, hell to the no, to the no, no, no. She didn't want to do it. She didn't want to do it. But God will push you. God will push you out onto a cliff, when it's time. And that was my gentle push. Did it work? No. I actually spent more time being introverted and in my house and afraid. At that time, I was cloaking it and, propping it up on this shelf of, I've done it. I've done relationships. I'm good. I don't need, I don't need this, from a space of protection and anger, not from a space of where I am now. Like, I don't necessarily need it. Do I want it? Yeah, but I'll be fine. You know what I mean? Like you could say one thing 2 different ways. It has 2 different meanings. So at that time, it was definitely like I don't need a man. Ugh, I don't want to do this. I'm good. I'm gonna just ball out. I'm gonna just work on my coin. I'm gonna do me. I'm gonna work out. I'm gonna get my body right. Like, the shit that really isn't completely the work. Like this, you going around to work a little bit more. So I started to do that. And I think for another 2 years, maybe a year and a half, I just kind of shut it down. The reason why I say I regret it not doing the work with her in real life when she asked me is because as a result of me being terrified to do that, when I was ready to go out into the world, I met 2 other men that were just like my ex. Did it last as long? Absolutely not, because I was more aware of the signs of the little tips. Didn't last as long. I think one was 2 months and the other was like 4. But was it just as traumatic? And did I wish I had some place to kind of like deal with that outside of myself? Absolutely. And I probably would have had that space and opportunity to work through that if I would have just did what she asked me to do in the first place. So after the self-accountability, it is really important that you listen to what your therapist is asking you to do. It might feel uncomfortable. It might sound scary. It might be terrifying, but it might be exactly what you need to do. Exposure therapy is a real thing. And I believe that really even happens in our relationships. I was, forced to look at some relationships and shift the way I lived with those people. It was one of the hardest things I had ever did. I cried for days. So the idea of doing that with my heart in a romantic sense just was scary, and I didn't want to do that. But I encourage you to do the work that your therapist invites you to do when they invite you to do it in their care, because they typically have a better gauge of where we are in the progress, because they're tracking the stages of where we are on our progress. And sometimes our feelings are not facts. Like, I might have felt a certain way, but looking back, I was so much further along on my journey than I really even thought I was, because I was in it. So yes, that would be number 5, is to listen to your therapist in terms of exposing yourselves to the things that probably got you into therapy again. And I don't mean anything that's involving SA or, any violence towards you. I'm talking solely about like interpersonal relationships and things of that nature. And so on the other side of all of that, right? On the other side of the healing thing, what I can't stand about people that talk about healing and like this abstract signpost in life is it never stops. Like, you get more information, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to continuously have to refer to that information. That doesn't mean that you're not going to have minor setbacks. You'll have more information, better knowledge and wisdom, so you'll be able to move accordingly. But you shouldn't be surprised if you repeat some things and then catch yourself and pull yourself back to where you need to be. Healing is a continuous journey. It is not I'm done, what's next? It is I made it across the mountain. And I see there's some more mountains, but at least my legs are stronger, at least my back is stronger. I can carry more now. I know when to take breaks on the journey, That's how you have to look at it. Thinking of all of these things in life as absolutes are so negative and such a detriment to your mental health, even more so. And they're not fucking realistic. That is not the human experience. So I think I just wanted to touch on this because this is why I started the channel. I want it to be a place where we can like laugh through our healing. I'm someone who feels like if I can laugh about something that was traumatic, then I know I'm over it. However, you guys like have your, signs of like you're over something, that's on you. But for me, I know that if I can talk about it openly and laugh about it, make jokes or whatever, and like share, then I'm over it. Yes, are there scars? There will always be scars. You will always have scars, but those scars will make you beautiful once you accept them. They will make you unique. They will make you resilient. They will make you stronger. They will make you wiser. And I know a lot of that sounds cliche, but it's only cliche when you're afraid to do it. And that's just my opinion. Like, coming on the other side of all of that, finding myself again, like having the peace within knowing who I am more than I ever have at this age was worth it, was worth the crying, was worth the feeling like I was going backwards, was worth the confronting things. And me constantly being in a place of trying to still do that with myself is what continues to make me have pride in who I am, because I'm constantly still doing that. Is it as severe and overwhelming? No, but it is a constant check-in. And that's what healing is. It is not a signpost on the path of life. It is a part of your journey of life. That journey starts when you decide to take the first steps, and you take those steps intentionally. So let's heal, people. It's fucking hard, but it's worth it. All right, till next time, out. Please tell me you recorded.